All right, so now let us start and see how to go about for this. So in your position, you must have your pencil, you must have your protractor. It does not matter whether you have this type of a protractor or you have this type of a protractor, as long as you're going to be able to read the angle. And therefore make sure again in your position you have your ruler, right? So now remember, what was the question, right? The question was, let me see if the question it is clear, if we can see the question. All right, there is the question. The question was, a plane flies 150 kilometers on bearing of 40 degrees. Draw the vector. So remember, before you start anything, this is the question, right? You start with your scale, right? So remember, the magnitude that we want to use is 150 kilometers, but the problem is our ruler, it doesn't have the kilometers. It's either we use our scale in millimeters or we use our scale in centimeters. We do not have kilometers on the ruler. It was gonna be easy to use the ruler if our ruler was in kilometers. So that means that's the purpose of that's the reason why we need to come up with a scale. So in our scale we will say 1 centimeter will represent 25 kilometers, right? 1 centimeter will represent the 25 kilometers. This is the first step before you draw. But because you don't want to draw 25 kilometers, this is just a scale, right? It will help you to determine how much is 150 kilometers in terms of centimeters, right? So if this is our scale, you can perform your simple mathematics. If you do not know how to use a scale to determine that, you can use a ratio method. You can say 1 centimeter is equals to 25 kilometers, but we are looking for what? We are looking for 150 kilometers. We do not know 150 correspond with how many centimeters. Mathematically, you can cross multiply. 1 multiplied by 150 will give us 150, and therefore 25 multiplied by x will give us 25x. Divide both sides by 25, and then our x will be equals to 60. So that means not 66, 6 centimeter will correspond with 150 kilometers. So this is the first step. So that means 150 kilometers is gonna correspond with how many centimeters? It's gonna correspond with 6 centimeters. Now we know the length of the vector, we know the magnitude or the size of the vector. So now what are we going to do? The next step is to draw then. But firstly, because our direction is not on compass, north of east or whatever, it is on bearing. Remember, we said that according to our Cartesian plane, bearing, this is how bearing works, right? So this will be our north, and then our north will start at 0 degrees, moving what? Moving counterclockwise, if you still remember from the basics that we have learned. So this is what I'm going to do then. I'm gonna draw a mini Cartesian plane, right? So my mini Cartesian plane will look like this, and make sure that your thing is straight. Okay, I'll use this because I want to draw a straight line. So but you'll be doing this on your books, right? So I'm gonna draw just dotted lines to represent my smaller Cartesian plane. And make sure that you use your faint lines. These lines are not supposed to be too clear, not too clear but too solid. Yeah. And therefore after doing this, just draw here. This will be your origin, and then this will be your origin, right? And then here this will be your origin. That will be your origin. So remember, this is 0 degrees, right, which is north of your bearing, right? And therefore what are you going to do? You're going to measure this angle over here, which is 40 degrees. So how are you going to measure that one? Like I said, you can use this protractor or you can use this protractor. It really does not matter. So what we're going to do is we go to our protractor. You see this dot over here, this dot over here of a protractor. hope you can see. I'm gonna put this dot over here just like this. See, let me see. I'm gonna make sure that this line, it is along this line. So I'm gonna put my protractor just like this, and make sure this line, it goes with 0 degrees. Make sure this line, it goes with 0 degrees. So that means maybe I could have extended it a little bit. If you can't see it extended a little bit, but I see there it is aligned with 0 degrees, né? And therefore I'm gonna measure, remember how much? 40 degrees, right? So I'm gonna measure 40 degrees, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. Therefore my 40 will be here. And therefore what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my ruler once more again, draw a construction lines, thin lines, don't have to be solid, guys, just thin lines. I'm gonna draw my construction line just like this. Don't draw a solid line, guys, right? And therefore now what are we going to measure using our scale? We said, remember, what did we say? We said, let me zoom out so that you can see. Right. We said 150 kilometer correspond with 60 centimeters. So I'm gonna measure my 60 centimeter joining this thin line that I just constructed over there. So I'm gonna measure 6 centimeters. So let me zoom in again. I'm gonna measure 6 centimeters. So you see this ruler, this point where it starts, this marking where it starts here, and then it starts there. Let me see. And then I'm gonna measure my 6 centimeters, right? So my 6 centimeter is gonna be here. And then now I'm gonna highlight or bold this line that I measured to be 6 centimeters. Can you see that? And therefore, how do you draw an arrow? Remember, I said you don't draw your arrow like this. You draw your arrow where it ends, because if you draw an arrow just like this, we're gonna measure this length from here to there. So you don't just draw an arrow like this, you see, because we're gonna measure from the head of the arrow to the tail of the arrow. So when you have a vector like this, draw your an arrow like this. Can you see that? So that means we're gonna draw an arrow here, and then we're gonna also do it nicely that side. And therefore here we have 150 kilometer, and then what is this angle over here? It's 40 degrees. So we have 40, we have bearing of 40 degrees, and therefore we are done. This is how we draw this vector. It is drawn to correct scale because it is measured. We use the scale, using the ruler, we use our protractor. Therefore that's how we go about for this one.